James Frew, Business Consultancy Director at Lloyd's Register, and they're based out of London.
I'd like to start by thanking Trevor and the whole TMS team for putting on such a great conference. I think the subject of decarbonisation is, to us, the most pressing issue challenging the transport sector, and indeed, more specifically for Lloyd's Register, the maritime industry as a whole. At Lloyd's Register, we have changed our business significantly to support the industry. We've divested non-core, non-maritime businesses to give us the capital to invest in supporting our clients in what we believe is the key challenge that they will face for the next 20, 30 years. Within LR, I lead the decarbonisation practice, and I think when I think about decarbonisation, I'd actually like to echo the words of Captain Al-Masabi that decarbonisation requires dedication to understanding actual carbon footprints, gathering data, creating scenarios, undertaking modelling to see how you can most effectively decarbonise your assets. To begin with, I'd like to just start off by presenting just some of the work that Lloyd's Register has been doing in terms of thought leadership around decarbonisation scenarios for the industry. Here I present 4 potential scenarios that we've developed together with The Economist. The first is an early transition and a gradual transition, the top left one. The top right one is a tech-driven and rapid transition. I think because it's early in the morning, I want to focus on those 2 optimistic ones in the rest of my speech. The later scenarios at the bottom, one is a regional and fragmented transition, causing significant damage to global trade. The final one is a delayed transition where we see sea levels rising by up to 40 centimetres and major ports such as Shanghai and Houston becoming inoperable due to rising sea levels. When we think about these scenarios, we're now trying to translate that to what that means for the maritime industry. And here I've tried to look at what this means just using one specific sector, the gas industry, as an example of what this transition means. On this chart, I show global gas transportation volumes today, almost all LNG and LPG, tiny amounts of ammonia for chemical purposes. Under the early transition scenario, by 2050, we see huge investment in the hydrogen economy, leading to significant volumes of ammonia. Actually, ammonia volumes by 2050, under this scenario, exceed LNG volumes. Under the tech-driven scenario, we see significant development of carbon capture. That development of carbon capture allows the continued use of LNG and indeed results in significant volumes of CO2, liquefied CO2 being moving around. And the maritime industry, of course, will have to cater to this demand. That's from the perspective of cargoes. From the perspective of ships, we really see for the industry both a top-down and a bottom-up challenge here. The top-down challenge is around fleet replacement, is around future fuels, is around the requirements of your customers and your charterers. That top-down strategic challenge is complemented by a bottom-up, granular, vessel-by-vessel challenge, looking at modelling emissions on a vessel-specific level, looking at the trading patterns of vessels, and looking at the technologies you can put onto vessels. The other point I'd like to emphasise is it requires cooperation across the entire industry. Due to the changes we've made at Lloyd's Register, we're now working across the industry, not just with ship owners and shipyards, but also working with future fuel providers to understand the market for future fuels and also how you can safely deliver these future fuels. I think it's well known that ammonia particularly poses significant safety challenges burning that on a vessel. We're also working with the cargo interest, the charterers, to try and understand how they can decarbonise their supply chains. Just to show an example of what this looks like in practice, here I've taken a sample for a single vessel. In fact, LR has worked with owners with a total combined fleet of well over 1,000 vessels, doing this sort of granular modelling of vessel-by-vessel transition trajectories. We define a required decarbonisation trajectory for the vessel. In this case, I've taken the example of a VLCC built in 2014. This is an actual vessel. We knew that the vessel, when we undertook this study more than a year ago, we knew the vessel had a dry docking coming up in 2024. We looked at optimizing the vessel's speed just to get it compliant with this decarbonisation trajectory until it had the dry docking. We looked at then in the dry docking at retrofitting some energy efficiency technologies. Because it was a relatively old vessel, we didn't do too much exciting. We didn't put an air lubrication system on or anything. Instead, we did just some optimization around the hull, hull cleaning, ultrasonic cleaning of the hull, and also some optimization around the propeller ducts, fins, etc. That took the vessel through to 2027, maintaining it on that decarbonisation trajectory. By 2028, it would regardless have dropped off the trajectory. So at that point, we started to model dropping in biofuels before the vessel reached the end of its economic life in 2034, and then we see it replaced by a net zero or zero capable vessel. So we've done that modelling on a vessel-by-vessel basis and then roll it up into what it means for the fleet as a whole. We also believe that new buildings and alternatively fueled vessels are going to be increasingly important in delivering the transition. And the challenge is, how can you make these economically viable? So in this chart, I look at the total cost of operations for a vessel under different potential fueling scenarios. So we looked at sort of just a traditional HFO vessel, LNG fueled vessels, methanol vessels, and LPG fueled vessels. Again, this is for a VLCC. And what we see is that the addition of a carbon tax and carbon pricing, as well as looking at taxes such as Fuel EU and EU ETS, do drive significant changes away from just a simple choice of the cheapest fuel to burn. It's now a choice of what's the cheapest fuel to burn, taking into account all the regulatory penalties and taxes that you may face. Given I had the opportunity to speak at this conference, which is a more all-encompassing conference, and we've got representatives from the ports community here, I wanted to also talk about just-in-time arrivals. And to us, one of the biggest changes the maritime industry can make is optimizing around the arrival time of a vessel, slowing the vessel down, sailing to arrive at port just when it's needed, rather than sailing fast and wait. To us is one of the biggest changes you can make, and I'm sure Rania will talk a little bit more about the Blue Visby Coalition shortly. Just to give you an example, again, sticking with the VLCC, sailing a VLCC from Das Island to Ningbo and back, optimizing the speed, making no other changes to that voyage, just optimizing the speed, could result in an improvement of 2 CII bands. So we see that as a very potent tool. I'm coming to the end of my time, so just to sum up with some thoughts. The transition is going to be a tailored transition. There's not going to be one size fits all. Energy saving devices, understanding which are the correct energy saving devices to fit to a vessel, will require vessel by vessel modelling. It will need to be tailored. When we think about future fit ships, we believe modularity, the ability to plug in and out fuel cells or diesel generators, is going to be a key theme for enabling the maritime transition. Carbon capture and storage, we believe, has huge potential, but again, selecting the right system is going to be a significant challenge and really requires detailed modelling. It's a tailored transition, but it is one with some common themes. The first is fuel efficiency. There are huge gains to be made with existing vessels for fuel efficiency, and more broadly, the power plant of a future vessel is going to have to be 30% lower 30% smaller than existing vessels, just because of the lower energy density of most zero carbon fuels. I've already touched on the scope for optimizing operations, which to us is one of the easiest wins. Picking up on Mr. Nevis's point about the alignment of your commercial operations with sustainability. Again, with shipping, if you burn less fuel, you pay less. So optimizing operations is a very important part. The final point I'd like to leave you with is just a very simple one. We don't build ships to burn alternative fuels. We build ships to carry cargoes. I think there's a lot of focus on how can we add in more options onto ships, create extra fuel tanks, etc., etc. All of that comes with a cost in terms of the cargo carrying capacity. So in a final thought, I'd like to urge the delegates to this conference, yes, to look at decarbonisation, but to look at it in a holistic way, to look at both the fuels you burn, but also how you can optimise and maximise what ships are actually built to do in terms of carrying cargo. Thank you very much.